Hollywood star Tony Curtis died at 85, but his final months were grim. 4 months before his death, he removed his 5 children from his $60 million will, left everything to his sixth wife. However, his decision was motivated by a grim truth. He may have been manipulated. The family was shattered by decades of drugs and misery. His daughter now reveals those dying days. Tony Curtis was born in East Harlem, Manhattan, on June 3, 1925. He wasn't Tony Curtis then. Schwartz was Bernard, poor Hungarian Jewish immigrant's oldest of 3 boys. His parents survived narrowly. They resided in a cramped 2-room flat above his father's failing tailor shop. Bernard didn't learn English until he was 6 due to financial constraints. He felt like a foreigner in his own city because he only spoke Hungarian. Bad things got worse during the Great Depression. His parents couldn't feed all their children in 1933, when Bernard was 8. They placed him and his younger brother Julius in a state-run home for a month. It wasn't punishment, they survived. It seemed like abandonment to a child. That brief absence altered him. He kept feeling unloved his whole life. Their poverty went beyond food and clothing. Loneliness, isolation, and no direction were the themes. Bernard was 12 when tragedy struck. Julius, his beloved younger brother, was playing outdoors with pals. Julius had wanted to play with Bernard earlier that day, but Bernard ordered him to play with the other youngsters. That choice haunted him. A truck hit Julius. Bernard hurried to the hospital and found him comatose. He pleaded with him to wake up, forgive him, and give him 30 seconds. But Julius died. Bernard remembered. He stated he promised to be a nice boy if he could get his sibling back that day. He carried that shame through celebrity, money, and 6 marriages. Home life didn't bring him peace either. Helen, his mother, was volatile. Her schizophrenia was unknown at the time. She punished her sons for not finishing their meals. Bernard was always afraid of her. Robert, his younger brother, was institutionalized with the same disease. Screaming, anguish, and bewilderment flooded the house. Bernard hadn't experienced love. "Where will you go if your mother doesn't love you?" he asked. That simple question illuminated his life. Fear and the urge to be liked followed him even to Hollywood, where he married 6 times and claimed to have slept with over 1,000 women. He still craved the love he never received as a child. By his teens, Bernard was in danger. He joined a street gang and skipped school and stole small items, not just for pleasure. He fled. Anywhere was better than home. Then something happened. An intervening neighbor sent him to Boy Scout camp. His path changed with that one act. It offered him hope and structure. Movies rescued him. Starting at 5 or 6, he would sneak into theaters and sit for hours. The darkness, myths, and heroes gave him hope. He climbed Bronx roofs, pretending to be in those movies. The dream began then. It clicked when he played his first school play aged 16. Maybe this boy from nothing may become anything. After graduating from Seward Park High School in 1943, Bernard joined the Navy. He was 18. After watching Destination Tokyo with Cary Grant, he was inspired. He falsified his mother's signature to join the submarine service. They assigned him to the Pacific support ship USS Proteus. Despite never seeing battle, he saw history on September 2, 1945. He witnessed the Japanese surrender in Tokyo Bay from his ship's deck a mile distant. The war ended. He was 20 years old. Upon returning home, he wasted no time. With no professional prospects, he enrolled at the New York Dramatic Workshop on the GI Bill. He didn't realize it, but this decision would change everything. Dramatic Workshop was no ordinary acting school. It was run by theater great Erwin Piscator, who escaped Nazi Germany. There, Bernard trained with future stars Elaine Stritch, Rod Steiger, and Walter Matthau. Legendary teachers Lee Strasberg and Stella Adler taught him. This school shaped artists, not just actors. Bernard learned talents that would help him star in Hollywood films. Then luck struck. Joyce Selznick, a talented talent agent, saw him at a modest Greenwich Village concert. He later quipped that she chose him because he was the prettiest boy. She saw something in him, whether true or not. She got him a Universal Pictures meeting. At 23, he flew to Los Angeles in 1948. He sat next to Jack Warner on that aircraft. The head of Warner Brothers offered to sign him if Universal released him. Universal signed him for 7 years. Bernard Schwartz became Anthony Curtis after the novel Anthony Adverse and his family name, Kurtz. He was soon known as Tony Curtis. He trained in horseback riding and fencing at the studio for adventure roles. Curtis acknowledged he preferred girls and money to art, but Hollywood was only starting to make him a famous. He made his film debut in 1949's Criss Cross. Despite his brief 2-minute dance performance in a nightclub, he was noticeable. Burt Lancaster watched jealously as he danced with Yvonne DiCarlo. His lines were non-existent. The camera still adored him. Viewers remembered his face, and the studio sensed his potential. He then played small roles in Sierra and Winchester, 73, with Jimmy Stewart. The Prince Who Was a Thief was his debut film performance in 1951. Universal heavily promoted this Tangier-set exotic adventure. Curtis led at 26 and was loved. He starred with rising sensation Piper Laurie and did most of his stunts. They worked so well together that the studio cast them in 3 more films. Critics disagreed. A few called the film ridiculous. Others liked its spirit. The box office was honest, a success. The downside of stardom followed. Typecast Curtis. He was handsome, affable, and athletic. He kept getting light adventure parts. The 1952 film Flesh and Fury attempted to change that. He played a deaf fighter in a grim drama. His films at the time were mostly forgettable. Francis, No Room for the Groom, and Ali Baba's Son. He gathered what he could to make a good showreel. The studios recognized him as a heartthrob, but Curtis wanted more. His first major change was playing Houdini in a 1953 biography. He appeared with his wife, Janet Leigh. He learned magic for a month and did his own tricks. The shoot required him to sit in ice-filled baths and get ice burns. The film skewed the facts, but Curtis showed depth. The first-time spectators saw more than his looks. In 1956, trapeze was the next significant step. Curtis, Burt Lancaster, and Gina Lollobrigida appeared in a high-wire circus drama. This role was physically demanding. Curtis trained for aerial acrobatics and tried the perilous triple somersault on video. Risk paid off. The film grossed $15.5 million, 3 times its budget. One of the year's top earners in the US and UK. Curtis gained dramatic acting credentials. However, 1957's heady smell of prosperity changed everything. Curtis battled for the part of Sidney Falco, a shady press agent trying to advance. Universal rejected him for the role. They worried it would tarnish him, but Curtis persisted. They reunited with Burt Lancaster, who played a cold, powerful newspaper columnist. Critics were stunned by Curtis. He was desperate, sleazy, fast-talking, and clever. He no longer played a hunk. He portrayed a flawed human. Later, film writer Pauline Kael called it his best performance. Movies failed during the time. Those expecting a light romance lead were confused. But the film aged well. It's a 1950s film classic. Many think Curtis should have been Oscar-nominated. Tony Curtis changed in 1958. His career-best performance was in The Defiant Ones that year. He played a racist fugitive felon shackled to Sidney Poitier. Curtis showed he could do meaningful work with the raw, bold film. The film was released on September 27, 1958, after Poitier won the Silver Bear for Best Actor at the Berlin Film Festival in June. The film received 9 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. Curtis and Poitier were nominated for Best Actor, but David Niven won for Separate Tables. The budget was $778,000, and U.S. and Canadian rentals brought in $2.75 million. Curtis's true self was shown off-screen. He demanded equal billing for Poitier above the title. That move was historic. Poitier was the first black Best Actor nominee. Their strong on-screen relationship moved Stanley Kramer. Poitier later said, "Tony is standing up to me and I sense it, so don't worry." Curtis came back in the spotlight a year later with sizzling stuff, but making it was hell. Marilyn Monroe was notoriously late, nervous, and inebriated on set. Curtis briefly dated her in 1949, adding to the strain. Filming took 29 days longer and cost $500,000 extra. Curtis, frustrated, compared kissing Monroe to kissing Hitler, which he probably regretted. The director Billy Wilder felt Monroe was her own worst adversary. "I had no Monroe issues. Monroe had issues." Curtis and Jack Lemmon spent hours in drag for their performances. Lemmon got a lifelong rash from the nylon stockings and girdle. December 16, 1958, saw the film's Los Angeles debut. Monroe miscarried the same day, later attributed it to filming stress. After pill overdose, her assistant found her unconscious on the floor with vomit on her face. Despite everything, the film was completed and became a classic. Curtis played another daring Spartacus role in 1960. Anthony, a slave for Laurence Olivier's Crassus, was his role. A sequence in the film alluded to Crassus's bisexuality, which was unheard of. The snails and oysters bath scene was groundbreaking. The Catholic Church's film Watchdog demanded its removal. Curtis and Olivier defended it. It was one take. In 1991, the scene was reconstructed. Olivier died. Hopkins dubbed his voice, recorded his lines again. He later called Stanley Kubrick a genius with actors and his favorite director. The film was massive, and Curtis stood out. In 1961, Curtis starred in The Great Imposter. He played Ferdinand Demara, a real guy who faked nearly 30 occupations, including surgery. Curtis used comedy and drama to attract spectators in the $3 million film. He looked nothing like Demara, but he had the same mentality, critics said. One of the wildest episodes was Demara doing 19 procedures on soldiers before being apprehended. The part worked because Curtis showed Demara wasn't malevolent, just a man trying his limits in a credential-based world. This performance proved Curtis could go deep without losing charm. Curtis began focusing on light comedies in the mid-1960s. Sex and the Single Girl featured him as a tabloid reporter, posing as someone else to expose a celebrity psychologist. The film deteriorated. It made $6,490 in France in 2002 after a re-release. The Great Race followed in 1965. It was the most expensive comedy of the time. It topped the U.S. box office for 2 weeks in October, but didn't make the top 10 for the year. Curtis founded his producing company in 1961. Seeking to manage his career, at least 8 comedies were created between 1964 and 1967. This work covered the bills but damaged his reputation. The actor was no longer considered serious, and reviewers thought he was coasting through forgettable sex comedies. His old work in Sweet Smell of Success and The Defiant Ones appeared remote. The Boston Strangler followed. 1968 saw a stunning comeback to form. Curtis played Boston serial killer Albert DeSalvo, who killed 13 women. He looked different with cosmetics, dark lenses, and body padding. Audiences barely recognized him. The film showed the killer and investigation in split-screen scenes. Curtis arrived roughly halfway through the film. He owned the screen when he did. He gave his best performance, say critics. Curtis was surprisingly good, according to Roger Ebert. He played a man who appeared regular but had a monstrous side disturbingly well, according to one review. The picture was well received, but failed commercially. Hollywood didn't recognize Curtis's acting prowess again. There was more to Tony Curtis than Hollywood. Each life was more dramatic than the last. After his cinematic career faded in the early 1970s, Curtis boldly switched to television. He and Roger Moore star in The Persuaders, a 1971 action comedy that cost £100,000 per episode, comparable to £1.8 million today. They shot across Europe, Britain, France, Italy, and Spain, mixing Curtis's American charm and Moore's British coldness. After ABC scheduled it against Mission Impossible, the show was doomed in the U.S. The U.S. audience didn't bite. In Germany, France, Sweden, Russia, and Italy, the series was a huge hit. Fans watched for decades. Performances earned Curtis and Moore honors in France and Germany. Curtis tried again in 1975 with McCoy, playing a slick con guy with a gambling addiction who employed intricate techniques to defeat enemies and return stolen money. This felt like The Sting on TV. The team was strong, famous directors, a good script, and Roscoe Lee Brown. Columbo and McCloud were too strong for it. One pilot and 4 extended episodes were enough for NBC to cancel. It ended before it started. Curtis persisted. He returned in 1978 with Vega as Slick Roth, a slick casino boss. The show was situated in Las Vegas, where Curtis felt at home. He played 17 episodes over 3 seasons with Las Vegas swagger. His critics loved him. Fans anticipated Tony Curtis's smooth, humorous, and effortlessly stylish style. Curtis shone under neon lights and palm trees as his film peers faded. His movie roles declined in the 1980s and 1990s, yet he still created waves. He was nominated for an Emmy in 1980 for playing Scarlett O'Hara war producer David O. Selznick. He and Kim Novak appeared in The Mirror Crack that year. He also played serious roles like Insignificance's psychotic senator and real-life mobster Sam Giancana in Mafia Princess. In 1984, Curtis hit a wall. He sought drug and alcohol treatment at the Betty Ford Clinic. There, he started painting and didn't stop. Acting faded away. In 1993, Curtis appeared in the indie film Naked in New York. The 1991 Spartacus re-release, especially a trimmed bath scene with Laurence Olivier, garnered him new fame. But Curtis moved on. His focus shifted from acting to painting. By the 2000s, painting was his passion.